Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a moment and think about all the times you've held yourself back. Not because you lacked talent, not because you lacked ideas, but because you thought too much. You've replayed scenarios in your mind, analyzed every angle, and weighed every risk, and yet nothing changed. That, my friends, is the silent thief of your potential overthinking. It whispers doubts in your ear, convinces you that waiting is safer than doing, and tells you that perfect timing will eventually arrive. But here's the truth. Perfect timing is a myth, and the only way forward is through action. Every great accomplishment, every breakthrough in history didn't come from hesitation. It came from bold, imperfect, unstoppable action. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You don't need to have every answer to start moving. Momentum is born from motion. Clarity comes from experience. And courage grows when you dare to act. So today, I invite you to release the chains of doubt, to step beyond your comfort zone, and to embrace the one thing that changes everything doing. Not tomorrow, not after one more thought, but right now. It's time to stop overthinking and start living. Overthinking is one of the most subtle and dangerous traps we can fall into because it disguises itself as careful planning, as responsibility, as thoughtfulness. We convince ourselves that we are being wise, that we are preparing for every possible outcome, but in reality, we are standing still while life moves on without us. Every time you replay a conversation in your mind, analyze a decision to death, or imagine the worst-case scenario, you are giving power to doubt instead of action. Overthinking is a silent thief. It steals your energy, your focus, and your momentum. You may feel busy, productive even, but what are you really accomplishing? Sitting in a room full of possibilities, trapped by the endless loops of what ifs, maybe, and I should. You are not creating results, you are creating anxiety. The mind becomes a battlefield of hypothetical scenarios, each one more convincing than the last, each one a justification to delay, to hesitate, to pause, when what is really needed is movement. You think that thinking more will give you an advantage, that every angle analyzed will protect you from failure, but the irony is that overthinking often guarantees the one thing you fear most, inaction. When you overanalyze, you postpone the moment when the world tests your courage, when the universe responds to your effort. You create a self-imposed barrier between where you are and where you could be. Opportunities pass by, doors close silently, and yet the mind keeps spinning, replaying old mistakes, imagining new ones, convincing you that waiting, pausing, and perfecting will save you. But nothing in life waits for the perfect moment, and nothing grows in the soil of hesitation. Every dream you have, every goal you imagine requires you to take a step into the unknown, to act before you are ready, to risk being imperfect, to risk failing. Overthinking is seductive because it feels safe. It keeps you in control of the narrative in your head, but control in the mind is not control in life. The real mastery, the real power comes when you move despite uncertainty, when you make decisions with courage instead of fear, when you allow yourself to be human and imperfect. Every moment spent trapped in thought is a moment stolen from experience, from growth, from the creation of your own story. Overthinking is a habit, and like any habit, it can be replaced with action, with decisive movement, with the willingness to embrace imperfection and uncertainty as the fuel for progress. You must learn to recognize the patterns, to see the loops for what they are, to refuse the false safety of endless contemplation, and instead step into the arena because life rewards those who act and punishes those who wait for permission from their own minds. Too often, we wait for clarity before we act, thinking that if we just plan a little longer, research a little deeper, or wait for all the pieces to fall perfectly into place, the path will magically reveal itself. But the truth is, clarity doesn't come before action. It comes through action. You cannot sit in your mind and think your way into certainty because certainty is not a precondition for progress. It is a result of engagement with the world. Every successful person, every innovator, every leader you admire did not wait for the perfect map, the perfect instructions, or the perfect conditions. They acted, they moved, they stepped forward into uncertainty, and it was through those steps that the fog lifted, that the path became visible, and that the lessons appeared. Action is not just movement, it is a form of discovery. When you act, you learn what works and what doesn't, you see what needs adjustment, and you uncover opportunities that no amount of thinking could ever reveal. The mind can theorize, hypothesize, and strategize endlessly, but it cannot replace the insight gained from doing. You must understand that waiting for clarity is waiting for a feeling that will rarely arrive, and in the meantime, Life is passing by. When you take action, even imperfect action, you create momentum, and momentum has a way of bringing answers to you. It sharpens your focus, it refines your understanding, and it builds confidence in ways that contemplation alone never can. The first step is always the hardest because it exposes you to uncertainty and vulnerability, but it is also the most powerful because it breaks the spell of indecision and begin. The process of transformation. Every mistake you make, every risk you take, every experiment you launch becomes a teacher. The universe responds to motion, to effort, to courage. Action is the antidote to doubt. It replaces fear with experience, hesitation with progress, and ambiguity with knowledge. You don't need to know the whole road to start walking. You only need to place one foot in front of the other, to commit to movement, and to trust that clarity will follow. Waiting for all the answers, for every contingency, for every what if to be solved is a strategy for stagnation. Action is the catalyst for insight, and insight leads to better action, creating a cycle of growth that thinking alone cannot replicate. You will find that the more you act, the more confident you become in your decisions, the more resilient you become in the face of setbacks, and the more opportunities present themselves. The path forward is rarely obvious from the starting point, but it becomes visible the moment you begin to move, the moment you stop theorizing and start doing, the moment you embrace the truth that progress is forged by effort, not by hesitation, and that certainty is earned through experience rather than imagined in the mind. Perfection is one of the most dangerous illusions we can chase because it keeps us frozen, waiting for a moment that will never arrive. We tell ourselves, I'll start when I'm ready, or I need to have everything figured out first, and in doing so, we create invisible chains that hold us back from our own potential. The truth is, nothing in life is perfect, and waiting for perfection is a strategy for stagnation. Every person who has achieved greatness, every innovator, every leader, every creator you admire did not wait for the perfect circumstances, the perfect skills, or the perfect plan. They acted with what they had, with the knowledge too. LS, and courage available at that moment. Progress, growth, and transformation do not come from perfection. They come from movement, from experimentation, from daring to try even when the outcome is uncertain. Imperfection is not a flaw, it is the starting point for mastery. When you embrace imperfection, you free yourself from the paralyzing fear of making mistakes, of failing, or of looking foolish. You understand that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory in itself, and that mistakes are not disasters. They are lessons, feedback, and opportunities to improve. Waiting for the ideal version of yourself, the ideal plan, or the ideal situation is like standing at the edge of a cliff, hoping the wind will blow you across safely. It won't. You must jump, take the risk, and adjust midair, because life rewards action, not hesitation. Courage is born when you accept that you do not have to be flawless to make an impact, that your best effort, even if imperfect, is more powerful than endless preparation. Each attempt teaches you something that cannot be learned in theory. It sharpens your skills, clarifies your thinking, and builds resilience. The beauty of embracing imperfection is that it liberates you to create, to experiment, and to discover what is truly possible. You begin to see that progress is a series of small, imperfect steps that accumulate into extraordinary results, and that failure is not the opposite of success. It is a necessary part of the journey. When you allow yourself to act despite uncertainty, you cultivate confidence, adaptability, and momentum. You stop worrying about whether every detail is perfect and start focusing on impact, growth, and movement. Imperfection is a signal that you are alive, that you are challenging yourself, and that you are pushing beyond comfort. The world is full of people waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or the perfect version of themselves. And while they wait, life passes them by. Those who achieve, those who inspire, those who leave a mark are the ones who act, who dare, who embrace imperfection as the fuel for progress. They understand that action, courage, and persistence are far more powerful than waiting for flawless conditions, and they move forward, refine, and evolve through every experience. Fear is one of the most powerful forces holding us back, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. We treat fear as if it is a signal to stop, a warning to retreat, but the truth is fear is a signal that something important is at stake, that growth and transformation are within reach, and that the moment has arrived to step up. The cycle of fear is sneaky because it disguises itself as caution, as self-protection, and convinces us that staying safe is the path to security. We imagine the worst case scenarios. We rehearse failures in our mind, and we build walls of hesitation that prevent us from moving forward. But fear only has power when we let it control us, when we allow it to dictate our decisions, when we convince ourselves that avoiding discomfort is safer than pursuing progress. Every breakthrough in history, every personal victory, every story of triumph began the moment someone refused to let fear win, the moment they acted despite trembling, uncertainty, and doubt. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move in its presence, to acknowledge it and step forward anyway, to use fear as a compass rather than a cage. The cycle of fear feeds on indecision, on overthinking, on imagining obstacles that may never exist, and the longer we stay trapped in that loop, the stronger it becomes. But there is a way out. The first step is awareness, recognizing when fear is influencing your choices, when hesitation is masquerading a prudence, and when avoidance is disguised as planning. The next step is action, decisive, bold, imperfect action that proves to your mind that you are bigger than the stories it tells you. The moment you take action, fear begins to lose its grip. Momentum replaces hesitation, confidence replaces doubt, and clarity replaces confusion. Every time you step forward, you reinforce a new pattern, that discomfort is temporary, that courage is powerful, and that the rewards of action outweigh the imagined dangers of inaction. Fear is meant to be felt, acknowledged, and then overcome through movement, because it is in the act of facing it that you discover strength you didn't know you had. Life does not wait for fear to vanish, and opportunities rarely knock on the doors of the cautious. Waiting for fear to disappear is waiting for the impossible. The only way to break the cycle is to act, to risk, to embrace uncertainty, and to prove to yourself that you are capable of more than your mind fears. Each step taken in the face of fear weakens its hold. Each decision made despite hesitation builds resilience, and each challenge met with courage expands your sense of possibility. The cycle is relentless only if you let it be, but the moment you choose action, the moment you prioritize growth over comfort, you begin to reclaim control over your life, to rewrite the story fear has been telling, and to transform hesitation into momentum, doubt into confidence, and fear into a driving force that propels you forward. We often underestimate the power of small steps, thinking that only massive leaps, grand gestures, or dramatic transformations matter. But the truth is, progress is built incrementally, one deliberate action at a time. Every great achievement, every lasting change, every extraordinary result began with a single small decision, a single small step forward, often unnoticed at the moment, yet critical in building momentum. The human mind tends to overestimate what can be done in a day and underestimate what can be accomplished over time. We look at the mountain in front of us and feel overwhelmed, convinced that unless we can conquer it all at once, there is no point in starting. But mountains are climbed one step at a time, and each step, no matter how tiny, brings you closer to the summit. Action, even small action, accumulates, compounds, and generates energy. Momentum is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is created by consistency, by the courage to begin, and by the willingness to keep moving even when the results are not immediately visible. Small steps are powerful because they are sustainable, because they create habits, and because they reinforce the belief that you are capable of progress. Every time you take a small action, you send a signal to your mind and to the universe that you are committed, that you are moving forward, and that you are willing to do the work required to change your life. Often the fear of failure or the desire for perfection prevents us from starting at all, but small steps remove that barrier because they are manageable, achievable, and less intimidating. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You only need to focus on what you can do today, right now, in this moment, and then repeat it consistently. The power of small steps also lies in their ability to teach and inform. Every action, no matter how minor, gives you feedback, shows you what works, reveals what needs adjustment, and builds the confidence to take the next step. It is through this process that mastery develops, not through waiting for inspiration or perfect timing. Courage is cultivated in repetition. Resilience is built in persistence, and clarity emerges from movement. You begin to realize that each step, though small, is part of a larger trajectory that will eventually lead to extraordinary results. The journey is rarely linear, and setbacks will come, but small, consistent steps allow you to adapt, learn, and continue moving forward without being paralyzed by the scale of the challenge. By focusing on progress rather than perfection, by celebrating the small victories, and by committing to consistent action, you create a life that grows and evolves, a life that transforms fear into confidence, doubt into determination, and hesitation into unstoppable momentum. Small steps are not insignificant. They are the foundation of achievement, the secret engine behind success, and the path through which dreams are realized. And they remind you that you do not need to be perfect. You do not need to have all the answers, and you do not need to wait for permission to begin.